Antioch in Pisidia, alternatively Antiochia in Pisidia or Pisidian Antioch in Roman Empire, Latin, Antiochia Caesareia or Antiochia Colonia Caesarea, is a city in the Turkish Lakes Region, which is at the crossroads of the Mediterranean, Aegean and Central Anatolian regions, and formerly on the border of Pisidia and Phrygia, hence also known as Antiochia in Phrygia. The site lies approximately 1 kilometer northeast of Yalvaç, the modern town of Isparta Province. The city is on a hill with its highest point of 1,236 meters in the north. Geography. The city is surrounded by, on the east, the deep ravine of the Anthias River which flows into Lake Aegean, with the Sultan Mountains to the northeast, Mount Caracas to the north, Kızıldag to the southeast, Kirazlı Mountain and the northern shore of Lake Aegean to the southwest. Although very close to Mediterranean on the map, the warm climate of the south cannot pass the height of the Taurus Mountains. Owing to the climate, there is no timberland but crop plants grow in areas provided with water from the Sultan Mountains, whose annual average rainfall is c. 1,000 mm on the peaks and 500 mm on the slopes. This water feeds the plateau in Antioch. The other Pisidian cities, Neapolis, Tyriacum, Laodicea, Catacaumene and Philomelium, founded on the slopes, benefited from this fertility. The Acropolis has an area of 460,000 square meters and is surrounded by fortified defense walls. The territorium of the settlement can be seen from the Temple of Men in the Sanctuary of Men Askenos on a hill to the southeast. The territorium of the city is estimated to have been approximately 1,400 square kilometers in ancient times. According to the 1950 census, there were 40 villages with 50,000 people living in the area. The population during the Roman period must have been a little more than this. The constantly irrigated fertile soil of the land is very suitable for growing fruits and for husbandry. For the veterans who came from poorer parts of Italy during the Roman period, agriculture must have been the driving force for integration of the colonies into the area. The modern town of Yalvaç is the second biggest in Isparta Province with an area of 14,000 square kilometers. The population in the center is 35,000. The total is c. 100,000. The town is 230 kilometers from Antalya, 180 kilometers from Konya, 105 kilometers from Isparta and 50 kilometers from Akşehir via the main road. History of Antioch. Prehistory. It has been a tradition to claim that the city dates back to the 3rd century BC and that it was founded by the Seleucid dynasty, one of the Hellenistic kingdoms. But the history of the city cannot be separated from the history of the Lakes region and of Pisidia. Research done in the area has shown habitation since the Paleolithic Age. During the excavations and surveys made by D.M. Robinson and the University of Michigan around Yalvaç in 1924, it was shown that finds from surrounding mounds date back to the 3rd millennium BC. In Antioch itself, no finds have emerged from the Proto-Hittite, Phrygian or Lydian civilizations, but we learn from Hittite records that the region was named Arzawa and that independent communities lived in the region. These people did not come under the yoke of the Hittites, but fought beside them against the Egyptians in the Battle of Kadesh. Over the ages, people were able to live independently in the Pisidian region because of its strategical position. Even the Persians, who conquered Anatolia in the 6th century BC and attempted to rule the area by dividing it into satrapies, were unable to cope with constant uprisings and turmoil. The approach of some researchers who would like to connect the cult of Men Askenos with the cult of the Phrygian mother goddess Cybele is also controversial. The worship of Cibola, traces of which can be seen in Antioch, is not a result of Phrygian influence. The idea of a mother goddess dates back to the Neolithic ages as shown by idols and figurines exhibited in Yalvaç Museum. Hellenistic Age. After the death of Alexander the Great, Seleucus I Nicator, founder of the Seleucid dynasty, took control of Pisidia. Captured places were Hellenized, and, in order to protect the population, fortified cities were founded at strategically important places, usually on a necropolis. Seleucus I Nicator had nearly 60 cities founded, and gave to 16 of them the name of his father Antiochos. Colonists were brought from Magnesia on the Meander to found Pisidian Antioch. Meanwhile, fights for the sharing of Anatolia continued and were complicated by the Galatians coming in from Europe. The self-interested Hellenistic dynasties could not expel the Galatians from the interior, but Antiochus I Seleucus fought against them in 270 BC in the Taurus Mountains and defeated them by the help of elephants, which the Galatians had never seen before. The historian Lucian reported the comment of Antiochos, "It's a great shame that we owe our liberation to 16 elephants." Anyway, Antiochos celebrated his victory when he returned to Syria and was given the title of Sota. The most reasonable approach is that Antioch was founded by Antiochus I Sota as a military base to control the Galatian attacks because it was on the border of the regions of Pisidia and Phrygia. The foundation of Antioch indicates a date of the last quarter of the 3rd century BC, but archaeological finds at the sanctuary of Menaskanos in the northeast date back to the 4th century. This indicates that there had been earlier classical cultures in the area. Roman period. While the Hellenistic kingdoms were fighting each other and the Galatians, Rome became the most powerful state in Europe and started to follow a policy of expansion to the east. They invaded Macedon, Thrace, and the Dardanelles, and reaching Phrygia via Magnesia and Pisidia, they cowed the Galatians, and according to the treaty signed in Apamea in 188 BC, they gave the land of Pisidia, which they had got from Antiochos III, to their ally the Pergamon kingdom, which dominated the region. Attalos III, the last king of Pergamon, bequeathed his kingdom to Rome on his death in 133 BC. Aristonicus, who claimed Pergamon, was defeated in 129. Then Rome affected Anatolia with its well-developed, creative culture for centuries. Although Anatolia was dominated by the Roman Empire as the province of Asia, Pisidia was given to the kingdom of Cappadocia, which was an ally of Rome. During the following years, the authority gap, which could not be filled by these kingdoms remote from central government, led to the rise of powerful pirate kingdoms, especially in Cilicia and Pisidia. The Romans were disturbed by these kingdoms and fought against them. Cilicia, Pamphylia, Phrygia and Pisidia were freed from pirates and Roman rule was restored in 102 BC. The geographical and strategical position of the region made it difficult to control the area and maintain constant peace. The Homnodesians, settled in the Taurus Mountains between Attaleia and Iconium, caused problems for Rome. Marcus Antonius, who had to control the roads connecting Pisidia to Pamphylia, charged his allied king Amyntas, king of Pisidia, to fight against Homnodesians, but Amyntas was killed during the struggle. Then Rome started to colonize using military legions as a solution to the failure of the locally appointed governors. The province of Galatia was established in 25 BC and Antioch became a part of it. it. To support the struggle against the Hominidesians logistically, the construction of a road called the Via Sebaste, the center of which was Antioch, was started by the governor of the province of Galatia, Cornutus Erutius Aquila. The Via Sebaste was separated into two and directed to the southwest and southeast to surround the Hominidesians. Secondary connecting roads were built between these two roads. Rome, by means of the Via Sebaste P. Sulpicius Quirinius, brought an end to the Hominidesians problem in 03 BC, relocating survivors in different surrounding locations. During the reign of Augustus, 8 colonies were established in Pisidia, but only Antioch was honored with the title of Caesarea and given the right of the ius Italicum, maybe because of its strategic position. The city became an important Roman colony which rose to the position of a capital city with the name of Colonia Caesarea. Hellenization became Latinization during the Roman period, and it was applied in Antioch best. The city was divided into 7 quarters called Vici, all of which were founded on 7 hills like in Rome. The formal language was Latin until the end of the 3rd century. The fertility of the land and the peace brought by Augustus made it easier for the veterans as colonists in the area to have good relations and integration with the natives. One of the 3 surviving copies of the Res Gestae Divi Augusti, the famous inscription recording the noble deeds of the Emperor Augustus, was found in front of the Augusteum in Antioch. The original was carved on bronze tablets and exhibited in front of the Mausoleum of Augustus in Rome, but unfortunately has not survived. The Antioch copy on stone was written in Latin, which is a sign of the importance of the city as a military and cultural base of Rome in Asia. Early Christian Byzantine period. Paul the Apostle and Barnabas, as recounted in the Acts of the Apostles, visited Antioch of Pisidia in the course of Paul's first missionary journey, and Paul's sermon in the Jewish synagogue caused a great stir among the citizens, but the ensuing conflict with the Jews led to his expulsion, together with Barnabas, from the city. The 2 returned later and appointed elders for the community there. Antioch is not mentioned by name in relation to Paul's other missionary journeys, but he did visit the region in both his second and his third journeys. Paul's persecutions and sufferings at Antioch are spoken of in 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 11. In the 6th century, the city of Antioch, which had been ranked as a Roman colonia, an outpost established in conquered territory to secure it, lost its strategic importance, and as it was off the main trade route, it started to lose importance more generally. Bishopric. Amid the remains of Antioch, beneath a ruined Byzantine church, which is the traditional site of the synagogue in which Paul preached, a 1st century building has been discovered that may have been that synagogue. As capital of the Roman province of Pisidia, Antioch was a metropolitan see. The Notitia Episcopatuum of Pseudo-Epiphanius, composed during the rule of Byzantine Emperor Heraclius in about 640, lists as its suffragan sees Philomelium, Sigalasus, Sozopolis in Pisidia, Apamesibotis, Tyriacum, Baris in Pisidia, Hadrianopolis in Pisidia, Lumne, Neapolis, Laodicea Combusta, Seleucia Feria, Adada, Cizella, Timbrias, Tyrmandus, Justinianopolis in Pisidia, Metropolis in Pisidia, and Papa. There is evidence that Prostana and Atenia were also suffragans of Antioch. In the Notitia Episcopatuum attributed to Leo V the Wise, Neapolis, which had become a metropolitan see, and Philomelium and Justinianopolis have been removed from the list of suffragans of the suffragans of Antioch, but Binda, Conana, Pale, Malus, Cineandus, and Titiasis are added. With the advance of Islam, Antiochia in Pisidia ceased to be a residential bishopric, and is today listed by the Catholic Church as a titular see. Known bishops: Antiochia in Pisidia, Enrico de Rossi, Leopoldo Franchi, Pietro Monti, Angelo Giacintos Capodini, Charles François Turanaz, Giovanni Volpi, Gustavo Matteoni, Filippo Bernardini, José Maria Bueno y Monreal, Fermin Emilio Lafitte, Francisco de Assis Perez, Corrado Bofill. Muslim invasions. The Byzantine Empire directed its economic, political and military power to the southeast because the warriors of a new religion from the Arab Peninsula were invading the furthest borders of the empire. The Arab raids from the sea and land weakened the empire. The capital city Constantinople was besieged by Arabs several times. Anatolian cities were damaged by these raids, and they began to be deserted. In the 8th century the raids increased. The fiercest attack of all against Antioch was conducted in 713 by the Umayyad prince al-Abbas ibn al-Walid, the son of Caliph al-Walid I. Antioch never recovered and hundreds years of glory vanished. In Antioch, which was visited by crusaders as well, a new people appeared in the 11th century, the Seljuk Turks, who captured the area and founded the Anatolian Seljuk Empire in central Anatolia. Until the 12th century Antioch was a base where soldiers stopped for a rest, constantly changing hands. On the 11th of September 1176, the armies of the Byzantine Empire and the Seljuk Sultanate met at Myriokephalon. Its exact location is unknown, but it is widely accepted that it was somewhere near Yalvaç. Sultan Killa Kazlin won the battle against Manuel I Comnenus, and the subsequent treaty signed in Antioch between Killa Kazlin and Manuel led to the introduction of Turkish culture, which survives to the present day. The Turks settled in the valley instead of on the Acropolis. As they controlled the whole of central Anatolia, they did not need defense walls, and the valley was very suitable for agriculture. They did not change the names of most of the captured cities, but the name of Antioch was forgotten, and with no Christians left in the region, they named it Yalvaç, which means prophet, perhaps a reference to St. Paul. Archaeology. Francis Vivian Yago Arundel, British chaplain at Izmir between 1822 to 1834, was the first person to define and study the city. In 1828 he published the record of his first journey to Inner Anatolia, made in 1826 as a visit to the 7 churches of Asia. His notes after his second journey in 1833 were published under the title Discoveries in Asia Minor, including a description of the ruins of several ancient cities and especially Antioch of Pisidia in London in 1834. W.J. Hamilton came to the region passing over the Sultan Mountains and observed the aqueducts, bath, and Great Basilica. His notes were published as Researches in Asia Minor, Pontus, Armenia, in 1842. He was followed at different periods by noted explorers of the 19th century such as Tchihachev, Labid, Richter, but none of them have the power of Arundel's detailed study, until Ramsay, William Mitchell Ramsay, who devoted 50 years of his life to the historical geography of Asia Minor, made his first journey to Anatolia in 1880. Together with J.R.S. Sterrett he embarked on 2 journeys studying inscriptions which provided detailed historical information. On both journeys they visited Antioch. In the same period Weber concentrated his studies on aqueducts. The water system was examined and the monumental fountain was identified. The outcomes of Ramsay's studies up to 1905 were published in 1907 as The Cities of St. Paul, their influence on his life and thought. In 1911 Ramsay and his wife, W.M. Calder and M. Hardy made camp in Antioch and studies were started systematically. Calder and Hardy explored the sanctuary of Menaskanos, which is on Karakuyu Hill 5 kilometers to the southeast of Antioch. The following year, excavations were made under the direction of Ramsay and were supported by Princeton University. During these excavations up to 1914, some important buildings were excavated in and around the city. In 1914, one of the breathtaking finds of archaeology, the Resgeste Augusti, appeared as fragments in front of the imperial sanctuary. After a compulsory break during World War I, Ramsay returned in 1923. In 1924, a major expedition was mounted by Francis W. Kelsey of the University of Michigan, which included Ramsay. The excavations were under the direction of D.M. Robinson and employing at times over 200 men from Yalvaç. The Great Basilica, Tiberia Platea, Propylon and monumental Western Gate were exposed. Then, after only 1 year of excavation, the work of the Michigan group ceased, the result of the bitter quarrel between Ramsay and Robinson. The only person who might have had the authority to resolve matters was Kelsey, and he died in 1927. Ramsay visited again between 1925 and 1927, but without any major results. No further studies were made until the 1960s. During this long interval, many of the architectural blocks from these major buildings were used by the natives for the construction of modern Yalvaç, and by the early 1960s, when Yalvaç Museum was about to be built, Antioch had become buried again. In 1962, a detailed survey was made by M. H. Balance and A. Fraser. K. Tuchelt came to the city in 1976 and caused some new arguments about the imperial sanctuary. Stephen Mitchell and Mark Wailkins conducted a survey and documentation of Antioch between 1982–3. Using the discoveries and drawing from earlier studies, especially those of the University of Michigan in 1924, they subsequently brought together all the available information about the city, supported with new finds, in a book entitled Pisidian Antioch. Today's Antioch is studied by Dr. Mehmet Tazlialan, director of Yalvaç Museum, and Tikan Bayram, mayor of Yalvaç. Mr. Tazlialan obtained his Ph.D. thesis on the imperial sanctuary and described the building known as the Great Basilica as the Church of St. Paul, acropolis and fortifications. The city, like other Hellenistic colonies, was founded on a hill for ease of defense. The steep valley of the river Antheus in the east provides a perfect defense. On the other slopes, the Acropolis goes up smoothly in terraces and reaches a height of 60 meters above the plain. It is not known whether the bastions of semicircular plan which can be seen in the west continue in other parts of the defense walls. The city is surrounded by reused blocks made of mainly grey local limestone. The massive blocked wall structure of the earlier phases are different from the mortared Byzantine early Christian walls. No clear evidence of defense towers has yet been found. Curved semicircular walls in the south and north would have made it easier to defend the fortifications. The defense system, when the masonry of the walls is considered, is very similar to the neighboring colonies Kremna, Sagalassus and even Aphrodisias in Caria. Most of the walls and defense system are from the 4th century. Other buried entrances and fortifications datable back to the Hellenistic period will no doubt come to light as excavations continue. The Acropolis was a defended space to which natives retreated during wartime or invasion. Houses and farms, however, were outside the walls, especially in the west and east. On the slopes going down to the plain, the remains of houses have been found. The location of the necropolis is not known, but pieces of sarcophagi, Phrygian or tombstones and funeral inscriptions in the walls of the houses in the modern Kizilca Quarter are indications that the necropolis should be looked for there. City plan. Most of the city has not been excavated, and questions like, for example, the relationship between the theatre and the Cardo Maximus cannot yet be fully explained. There is much which is still buried under the hills in the potential excavation area of 800 by 1,000 meters. Electromagnetic studies in recent years have shown that the hypodamic plan with streets at right angles was applied successfully, like at Priene and Miletos. The city was divided by the streets in two quarters. The names of the following vici are known from inscriptions: Venerius, Velabris, Ediculus, Patricius, Sermulus, Salutaris and Tuscus, but their extent has yet to be established. One of the two principal streets is the Decumanus Maximus, which starts from the western city gate, and it is 90 plus 320 meters long. The other is the Cardo Maximus, which is 400 meters long, and it starts from the Nymphaeum and crosses the Decumanus Sea, 70 meters south of the Tiberia Platea. On both sides of the streets are ruins dating back to the 1st–2nd centuries AD. The name Platea is used for large areas of street squares surrounded by shops and porticos. In the eastern Roman provinces, the Platea became colonnaded streets. The discovery of monumental buildings, and especially of several nymphaeums on both sides of these two colonnaded main streets, prove that this was something which occurred in Antioch also.